Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. One of the major challenges in 2025 is not developing the application but getting the application to production. Especially with startups, they have their source code ready in GitHub repositories, but to get it to production in a customer ready state, they take months together. And it's quite understandable. There are so many tasks to perform. For example, continuous builds, continuous integration tests, continuous deployment, infrastructure as code, managed database setup, auto scaling, DDoS attack prevention, securing your domain. Trust me, this list just goes on. So for startups with limited instance, this is definitely a tricky task. Not only startups, some mid-scale organizations also find it challenging. How about a platform that can automate all of these tasks? I'm talking about Render. So, Render is a cloud application platform that can automate right from your continuous builds to securing your domain. In a nutshell, Render allows full stack developers to focus on development and rest is taken care by the platform. In today's video, let's see how to create a free account with Render. I'll also use a sample application to demonstrate its capabilities. It's definitely going to be a super exciting video. So make sure you watch it till the end. I should also thank Render for sponsoring today's content. Thank you so much, Render, for reaching out to us and believing in our content. Let's get started. So as a first step, let's create an account with Render. It's pretty straightforward. Just use the link in the description or pin comment. You will get to this landing page. Click on the sign in button. You can use your GitHub credentials, GitLab, Bitbucket, or even your Google account. The best part is that to create an account, Render doesn't ask you to set up credit card details. Perfect. Once you have your account created, you can access the Render dashboard. I already have my account created and this is my dashboard. By default, a workspace is set up for you, which is a hobby workspace. That is, this workspace comes with a limited compute. If you want to upgrade, for example, you have done your proof of concept on the hobby workspace. And if you want to upgrade to a more powerful compute, you can create a new workspace and upgrade there. I'll talk more about workspaces, blueprints, projects, environments. But before that, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are interested in automatic build and automatic deployment feature. So let me quickly demonstrate that. I'll use a demo application. So this is basically a web service, a tic-tac-toe game application that I've written some time back. This is not super complicated, but it has various components. Build and deployment of this takes a lot of time. Let's see if Render can achieve this in a couple of minutes. So first of all, I will select deploy web service. If you have a static site, you can also go for it. You need to integrate your Git provider. Let's say you're using GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. So you can quickly connect that with Render and search for your repository. So in my case, the name of the repository is DevSecOps demo. So I'll just choose that. And as I told you, I'll talk about projects in a while. So let's skip this field. Programming language. So there are two options. One is you can select your programming language, or if you have a Docker file in the repository, you can leave it as Docker. In the repository, I already have a Docker file, so I leave this option as Docker. However, if you don't have a Docker file, you can choose programming language and you just have to provide the build command and the start command for the application. Branch is main. You can choose a region that is nearest to you. Root directory. In some cases, the root directory can be different, such as src or controller. In my case, the root directory is same, that is default. So I'll just leave it as blank or provide dot. So this is what I was talking about, hobby project. So I will be choosing hobby project, although I have credits in my account. Most of you are going to try it, I'm sure. So that's why I will show you with hobby project first. And if you're interested, let's say you need more powerful compute for your organizational applications, you can go for any of these compute resources. I don't have any environment details, and there are also some advanced configurations that I can provide. For example, secret files, or if I want to download something from a Docker registry or upload my files, I can also provide registry credentials. Rest all, I will just leave it as default and click on deploy web service. Now you will see under a couple of minutes, it will clone my repository, it will build the project, it will deploy the project onto a hobby instance because we have chosen hobby project. It will also set up a domain for it, and it will host the application securely. All of this will be done in a couple of minutes. You can see the logs. I would recommend you to follow the logs if it is your first time, because Render does a lot of things. It started building the application through the Docker file. All that you need to do is just go to the top of the screen. Right now it is in the building stage. While it is deploying, you will see the status change to in progress. And then you will see this as live. So once it is live, you can go back and access this URL. So this is the URL on which my application is going to be hosted. If you want, you can go for a custom domain, or you can also provide a domain that you have procured. So Render also supports that. It can secure your domain using TLS. I will choose a default domain that Render is offering. Perfect. It did not even take a couple of minutes. I can see the status is changed to live. Now let me try to access this URL. Perfect. My tic-tac-toe application is live. Imagine if I had to do it all by myself. I would have taken a couple of days if I'm not sure about the application. And let's say if someone is completely new to this entire thing, building, deploying, getting a website for it, hosting it on a domain, it would take a much longer time for them. Whereas Render was able to achieve this in a couple of minutes. So this is about automatic builds and automatic deployment feature of Render. Now let's explore the other important features that it offers. So let's start with workspaces. What exactly is a workspace? In Render, everything that you create, whether it's a web service, data store, project, they all belong to a workspace. So typically you can organize your projects and services within a workspace. Not only that, workspaces are also associated with the billing plans. That means when you create a workspace, you associate it with a billing plan, and according to the billing plan, you get access to the Render features. For example, the default workspace is associated with the hobby plan. So you get access to limited compute, and some features of Render are not supported as part of this plan. It's very simple. Start with the hobby billing plan, try out your Sidekick project, or go with your demo application. Once you're confident about it, you can upgrade to a different workspace. How you can do it? Just click on New Workspace, provide the name of the workspace, and choose between 4 different billing plans of Render. Of course, the default one that you get when you set up your account is the hobby billing plan, where you don't get access to role-based access control, SOC 2 type to report, and migration support. Also, the compute that you get is very less. You get 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM. This is typically good enough for startup builds. However, when you're working with small teams or early stage startups, you can upgrade to the professional plan, where you get access to role-based access control. Along with that, you get 16 CPU, 64 GB RAM performance builds. Also, you get 14-day log retention and 15 bills retained against 7-day log retention and 5 bills retained of the hobby billing plan. If you're working for larger teams with complex needs, you can upgrade to the organization plan, where along with role-based access control, you also get access to SOC 2 Type 2 report. Now, this report is very important when it comes to compliance, and you get it as part of the organization plan. Of course, you also get 30-day log retention and 30 bills retained as part of this plan. Finally, if you're looking for support, let's say you want to migrate from Heroku to Render, you can get in touch with the contact sales and you can choose the enterprise plan. So within the enterprise plan, you get support to all the render features and also migration. In a nutshell, workspaces are very important. They define your billing plan. According to the billing plan, you get access to the features. Now that we understood workspaces, what exactly we do with the workspaces? If you go back to the demo, I deployed a web service directly within the workspace. However, recommended approach is to create a project. Within the project, create the environments, and within the environment, create the web service or any service that you want to create within Render. Let me explain this through a diagram. So imagine you work at a startup and you have created a workspace for product engineering. Instead of directly deploying services within product engineering, because you have various services, sometimes it can be 50 services, or you might also have managed databases. Instead of directly deploying all of them within the workspace, you can create various projects. For example, you might have payments as a team, shipping as a team, notifications as a team. You can set up projects for these teams. And within these projects, instead of directly deploying services to production, you can create environments such as dev, staging, and prod. So initially, create a staging environment, put the services in the staging environment. Once you're confident, you can create an environment for production and deploy your services to the production environment. So this is the ideal workflow recommended with Render. This way, you can create teams and you can also provide access to the teams for the required services. So this also helps you with RBAC. Now let's see this in action. So we'll go to Render dashboard instead of directly creating a service. So last time we clicked on web service and we provided access to the GitHub repo. But this time we will first create a project. So let's call this project as payments. And instead of production, I will start with staging, create the project. So you will notice a project called payments is created. Within that, I have the staging environment. And it explains that within the staging environment, there are no services deployed and there are no end groups. So I can create a service here, or I can set up multiple environments first and then create services within the environments. So just like staging, I will also create production. Now we have two different environments. I will start with staging and create a service within it. So you can choose static site, web services, private services, managed data store, anything between the different options that are provided. We were using a web service before, so let's try the same thing. So we will try DevSecOps demo, right? And here it asks you to provide the project. So I provided the project as payments and environments as staging. So this is where it gets the environment as well as the project information from. We'll go with the same details, Docker, Singapore, and this time, because you're working with a startup, you can go for a professional instance. However, you can also go with a hobby project here. But when you're working with your company, you cannot choose a 512 MB RAM and zero point 0.1 CPU. So you would upgrade to a starter plan, maybe Pro or even Pro Max. It all depends on type of web service that you're working with, right? Deploy the web service and it works exactly the same. Now, once your application is live, once you perform some basic tests, you can go back to your project and this time you can deploy the application within your production environment. If you have multiple web services, probably you can run integration tests, you can perform manual tests, and only once everything looks good, you can get to the production environment. So this way, you can organize different environments within your render platform. Once again, so at a high level, you have workspaces. Within a workspace, you can set up multiple projects, and within a project, you can create staging environment, production environment, within which you can deploy your services. Now let's go ahead and understand another important feature of render, that is blueprints. So let's try to understand what exactly is blueprints and how it can be used in the platform. Let's go back to the same example. So imagine within the staging environment, we deployed a web service, data store, and a sidecar application. QA team has performed tests on it, and after a while, they said everything is good with the staging environment. Now, to get this on the production environment, again, I have to create a web service, data store, and a sidecar application. Imagine if you are dealing with more complex configuration, redoing the entire thing is like reinventing the wheel. Now, instead of redoing everything, render supports blueprints. So I can go back to my project. So this was the project. I can go to the staging environment, the web service that is deployed, click on the three dots, generate blueprint. So render generates a declarative YAML file, which is infrastructure as code. So I have the entire web service configuration. If I had a data store and other sidecar application, within the render YAML file, you will also find all that configuration. Now, all that I have to do is download this file, put this in a GitHub repository, and replicate the exact environment. So render.yaml is infrastructure as code, where instead of redoing everything between different environments or between different projects, you can create that environment or replicate it automatically. Let me show you with an example. So I'll go back to blueprints. Render has provided a lot of examples in their GitHub repository. We will use one of that. So we'll click on new blueprint instance. So it is asking me to provide the GitHub repository. Instead of copying that render YAML file to my GitHub repo, I will choose a public example provided by render. So this is their blueprints page. And here I have the YAML file. So basically, I'll just copy this YAML file, right? Or I can just provide this GitHub repository as the URL, public Git repository, and continue. So you can see here, it started picking up the configuration. So I have to provide name for the blueprint. Let me call this as production or payments blueprint, right? So I'm asking it to use the render.yaml file from the master of the GitHub repository and deploy the blueprint. So you will see here, it will deploy the configuration that is part of this GitHub repository. So within this GitHub repository, there is a Django project. Now this entire thing will be deployed onto my render environment within no time. So it started creating the my site DB, which is a data store, and then it will also create the web service. Perfect. So I have the database created as well as web service. Now I can simply go back. Resources. Yeah, I can see both of them deployed. So I can go to the blueprints, payments blueprint, and I can access the my site. Click on the URL and that's it. So I have my web service as well as data store deployed using the render blueprints. Overall, this is how you can use infrastructure as code. I hope you found the demo interesting, and I would definitely recommend you to try out the platform. It supports various programming languages and various frameworks. So give it a try using the link in the description and also pinned comment. Let me know how you like render in the comment section. See you all in the next video. Take care.